Hello, welcome back for week 2 of the Live Responsibly, Die Thoughtfully read along. I apologize again for the lateness of this video. I had some exciting events happening locally end of last week. So here I am. We're ready to get rolling on the Living Responsibly Roadmap chapter. So this starts on page 15. If you haven't gotten your copy of the book, it's available on Amazon, or if you're local to Bainbridge Island or North Kitsap, I'd be happy to meet up with you and get you a copy. So I'd like to start with something that's actually not in this chapter, but it's really about what it means to live and die responsibly and thoughtfully. So the last time that I saw my mom, I took her up to the roof of the hospital, Swedish hospital in Seattle, and not realizing that this would be the last time we'd actually have a conversation. I just talked about mundane things, commented on the roses. We sat there in silence, felt the sun on our faces, and it was beautiful in its own way, but it was not what it could have been. I really didn't know what to talk about. We still weren't facing up to the reality that she might not make it out of the hospital. So, yeah, this chapter is about introduces the Living Responsibly Roadmap, and that roadmap has 4 steps. And so I'm going to go through them just briefly today. Next week we'll go more in depth into step 1. But the idea between step 1 is to stop avoiding the topic of death. And this is pretty much baked into our brains. We don't, our brains don't want us to think about it because the idea of not existing is really scary to our brain. And so really we have to get over the avoidance of this topic to begin with. And then we can move to step 2, which is overcoming our resistance to doing something about it. So those steps might feel like they're the same thing, but it's really not, because step 1, we're avoiding the whole topic. And then step 2, we're sort of stepping into looking at it for ourselves and what it means to not be here. And then in step 3, becoming accountable, you can actually start taking steps. Think about your legal documents, your healthcare documents. But if you haven't gotten through steps 1 and 2, then you'll still sort of be in denial. You won't really get the importance of what doing this work can provide for you. And then, of course, step 4 is the prize, the goal. You get to live your life according to what your soul, if you believe in a soul, or what your heart really says, this is what I'm meant to be doing. And people have just had incredible experiences with being able to live into that once they are prepared and they have all this work done. It makes every moment so much more precious. It makes us really appreciate those around us, experience gratitude in a much deeper way. But you have to go through those first 3 steps in order to get there. So what do I mean by living responsibly? Well, I'm going to read from page 15. There's that line, if you don't choose to live responsibly, you will die irresponsibly. And so instead of dying irresponsibly, we want to die thoughtfully. And so that means we make a conscious decision to lean into the reality of our mortality. This is on page 16. We utilize that awareness to bring our lives into alignment with our core values. I don't know if you've ever done a core values exercise, but it's really, really interesting to identify what means the most, what matters the most to you. And then, only then, can we put a roadmap in place for now until the end, thereby giving us the best chance of dying without regrets. And so that is the plan. But what does it mean to live responsibly? And I know that word responsible has so many connotations, and it's not nose to the grindstone, going to work every day, um, doing the best for your family, and maybe not taking such good care of yourself. It's really about living as your soul, like I said, your soul wants you to be the most you that you can possibly be. I've had amazing discoveries and just awarenesses grow since I did this work for myself and helping my clients through it. I still get insights as to what I want my life to look like. And so how do you get past like this first step of avoiding? Well, one way is to ask your relatives or friends to share a story of someone they lost who maybe it was a recent one, maybe it was not so recent. Um, and maybe their anniversary is coming up, or the anniversary of the death, or a birthday is coming up, and just ask them to tell you a story about that person. What did they like? Was a memorable outing that you did together? Or how did you celebrate birthdays? How did you celebrate holidays? And that can often lead into, oh, well, yeah, I guess we had some preparation done, or we didn't have preparation done. And then you can sort of get into that. Well, how did it go? Was it a good experience? Was it a horrible sort of in between? Death is often not a uplifting experience, although there have been amazing celebrations of life that take place, bringing family and friends together. Um, so back to that sort of, we're wired to not talk about death. It takes energy for our brains to overcome the resistance to that. And so if you can step into it in a just sort of gentle way, asking about that person, something that they liked. Do you have any special item that belonged to them that you can tell me a story about? That's one way to get into it. Another thing, so I'd love to offer this to you today. I was listening to the podcast Best Life, Best Death. Hard to say that. Best Life, Best Death. And they were talking about this sort of game you can play called Five Senses. And as a way to sort of just ease into a conversation about what you would like or not like, either for severe illness or at your deathbed. So five senses, obviously, taste, smell, hearing, touch, and touch, right? So often at the end of life, there are two senses that are magnified. The hearing one is pretty much for everybody. The others vary. Sometimes taste or smell gets really heightened. Other times touch gets really heightened. And so just to go through each of the senses and say, okay, for smell, I love the smell of lilies. But that might be too much at the end of death. So, if you love lilies, write down, I would love to have lilies in the room. Or if you hate the smell, say no lilies. Or if you really love, I had a friend say, or a client say, I really want to have wine be one of the last tastes. And, you may not be able to swallow, but they could dip a Q-tip in some wine and just put it on your tongue so that you would have that familiar sensation. Hearing, many times it's lovely to have music going on. And so maybe you really love classical music. For my dad, we played a lot of Bach because he was a huge Bach fan. He actually died at 3 or 3:30 in the morning, and he didn't want us there. He had said ahead of time, we can be there from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, but I don't need you there all night. He was in an assisted living place, and so he had round the clock care. But I do believe that he chose to leave at a time when we were not there. So I would like to finish with the quote that I put at the end of this chapter. Actually, end of step 4. Let me find that. Oh. Yes, end of the chapter. So it is not the end. Oh, this is from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. It is not the end of the physical body that should worry us. Rather, our concern must be to live while we're alive. Oh, I just love that. Live while we're alive, to release our inner selves from the spiritual death that comes with living behind a facade designed to conform to external definitions of who and what we are. So, my experience has been by going through these 4 steps, doing the work, you will get out from behind that facade and live while you're alive and be ready for the end. So, next week we will get started on the steps. I'm really excited to share step 1 with you, and we'll see where the conversation takes us. As always, I'd love for you to put your comments and questions in the under here in the video so I can respond to them, and let me know what spoke to you in this chapter. All right, I'll see you next week.